Eoin Everard, welcome to the podcast.
Francesco, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for reaching out and for being with us today. So before we dive into today's topic, which is training for master athletes, maybe give us a short presentation of who you are, because you actually reached out to me presenting yourself as a physiotherapist, uh, as like a running or better. Sorry. No, wait. We should restart because I
Yeah,
messed
no
up.
problem.
Actually, I meant to ask you, how do you pronounce your
That's
name
perfect. Yeah,
correctly?
Owen Everard. Yeah,
Owen Everard. Okay. Okay, I'll restart.
yeah.
Owen Everard, welcome to the podcast.
Francesco, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us today, and thanks for reaching out. Um, so before we dive into today's topic, which is training for master athletes, maybe give us a short presentation of who you are, what you've accomplished in running, and you're now a physiotherapist. So yeah, just present yourself and let's get started.
Yeah, I'll keep it very short so we can get on to the good stuff. But yeah, basically, I'm the current European and world Masters over 35 champion. I'm 37. Um, I would do more of the shorter stuff than the trails, but I've ran like say sub 14 minutes for 5K, sub 4 minutes for a mile, sub 30 minutes for 10K, sub 50 minutes for 10 miles. That's kind of as high up as I go on the good stuff. Then, as you said, I've won 5 national championships, ran for Ireland several times, and then on professionally, I am physio. I am a kind of sports Pilates instructor as well with Everard.Pilates.com. And then I also have a PhD in biomechanics.
Awesome. I mean, sub 4 meter mile is impressive, and I think it's a special category that we should highlight. So very
Yeah,
jealous for
yeah.
that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
not I'm not as fast, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Awesome. So the idea for today was to talk about training for master athletes, as I mentioned, because I think that masters running is usually framed as a process of decline, and we rarely talk about understanding and optimizing um, like the potential of masters runners in the same way that we do for like younger runners, basically.
Yeah.
And like most of the time, people are just given a training plan that is like
Generic. Yeah.
regardless the age. um and training is training. We were talking about it even before starting the record button. Training is training, whether it's for men or women, for trail running or road running or track. But it's important to understand the principles behind and the reason of some of the choices that we do. Also, I wanted to mention something that is specific to trail running, that is related to age, because while the average age of elite track and field athletes and marathoners is obviously around 25 to 30 years old, maybe the age of peak performance in endurance events on trails generally increases as the distance also increases. So we're seeing like lots of athletes in their 40s performing really well and winning major races, even beyond the marathon distance, and like achieving super impressive performances.
Yeah, I was going to
So
say the
this is,
same thing. You see that a lot. You see
yeah,
people in their 40s, even 50s, winning a lot of the trail or ultramarathon races.
exactly. So to me, that is really interesting, and I would like to better understand why, and in the end, like how should we adapt training as we age. That's the main question of today's conversation. But maybe let's start from the science. So what happens to the body when we age, and why our performance decreases from a physiological perspective?
Well, there is like obviously there's disadvantages as we age, but generally a lot of it is as you said, like a reframing, because there's other things that kind of get better with repeated use. So while our elasticity will start to go a little bit, our natural kind of power and speed. And as you said, like, you know, if you look at peak, you can see this on track and field. If you look at peak speed, we hit that about like 23, 24. Whereas if you look at, like, say 1500 meters, maybe even 5K, we're going to hit that around like 27, 28. And then 5K, 10K, half marathons, like, you know, Kipchoge is like 37, 38.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so as we go, we get different benefits. So what we lose is we lose natural speed, we lose natural power, we lose some elasticity. However, what we gain in that time is, as long as we continue to train, is we gain natural strength. Like, I know myself at 37 or in my 30s, I'm like actually like physically stronger than me at 18 or 20. You know, am I as powerful? No, but like actually I'd have more strength. Your aerobic system continues to develop as we develop. So the adaptations that occur continue to occur. So there's not like this decline on that. And that's why you see people do well at the longer distances in trail running, because your aerobic base, not that it gets better as you get older, it's that, like, if we were just continuing to do speed work, and it's not to say we shouldn't do speed work as we get older, it's that we have this, like, we're trying to get faster, but like that increased chance of injury at going like at 100% is increased because of our regeneration capacity is lower, our elasticity is a little bit lower. So even though we're trying to train at a higher level, and if we can, there is this natural decrease that's occurring at the same time. And like, because of like that increased chance of injury, you're probably not going to push yourself like even subconsciously as much. However, there isn't that same decrease in your aerobic potential. So each year, as you are getting fitter, and, you know, like, if you get consistency, you can be a lot more aerobically sound because your heart's adapting, your lungs are adapting, the ability, you know, to carry oxygen more efficiently in your blood continues to adapt and improve. And that's why you don't, except for like, say, Jakob Ingebrigtsen, who's been doing this since he's like 10, you don't see a lot of distance runners peak early in their 20s. Like, you know, Mo Farah would have been like 32, as we said. Like, a lot of good runners will be in their late 20s, 30s before they're even winning, like, say, the 5K, the 10K Olympics, because it takes that long to develop the aerobic. And then you can see, as we said, a lot of the runners like Kipchoge, late 30s, arguably even older than that, if you take some of the rumors, you know, that he would have been older when he started than he said, and then now he's like, you know, there's rumors he's 42, like, you know, so you gotta, you know, if he is, that's an unbelievable achievement. And then, as I said, so if you got someone in their late 30s, maybe early 40s, who are running records, it's because they get strength, they get aerobic, and they can kind of maintain other things that are naturally decreasing, but then they get those benefits.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I think in the end, like, the effects of aging come from many different factors, and like, I think like we can divide them into maybe two categories, like central factors due to, you know, maybe the cardiovascular system, for example, like our maximum heart rate naturally decreases as we age, and also peripheral, because like the oxygen extraction and utilization changes as we get older. Also, I've read that there is a process that is called sarcopenia, which is the muscle loss due to aging. That basically, like, it means that we're losing muscle mass, and thus we're also losing strength, or the ability to like produce the same power with the same muscle fiber. Can you describe a little bit those processes?
Once you, so like, obviously, like, for men and women, like if you think of our reproductive hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and women have testosterone as well with estrogen and progesterone, so they'll naturally they'll kind of peak in your late 20s, and then you kind of maintain them until like about 35, and then there's a slight decrease, and then like there's a decrease then as we continue, so that they say you have a loss of about like 0.5 percentage point in strength. However, if you continue to exercise, you can maintain that. So if you did nothing,
Exactly.
and a 25-year-old did nothing, 25-year-old can still maintain the muscle mass they have with relatively little effect. As you get older with sarcopenia, about 0.5 percentage loss in muscle mass occurs unless you continue to train.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and like a super important takeaway from this conversation should be that regular exercise reduces the rate of decline of all these processes. Like the more consistent we are with training, the better our aerobic system will be, the more efficient our muscle will be, and so on. So
that's such a good point there, friends. Yeah,
training can keep us young.
Yeah, 100%. And even though we're saying that we're going to be a little bit naturally less elastic, we're going to have less, say, speed, especially for trail runners or ultramarathon, the focus can be that people, because they're better at these events and the shorter events, the focus can be sometimes to just focus on these, to focus on the longer running, where really, even for performance in those events, it's really important to keep in, say, like strides after these runs, keep some of the quality. It doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be where you're going to a track and trying to run as fast as you can, but okay, maybe you do your long trail run, and trail running is great because of that varying surface. It really keeps people on their toes and the muscles working. But like, say, during the week, once a week or twice a week, doing 6-10 second strides or 4 15-second strides where you pick it up naturally, trying to run a little bit quicker, can really help. I'm gonna get to some of the other interventions I suppose we can do as we get older to try keep good optimal performance. But as you said, it's important not to get disheartened with these things. All these are reversible with some training, and it's actually more important to lean into it as we get older.
Yeah. And why is that? Like, I think one of the main things that like any of us realize as we get older is that our recovery capacity is not as developed as when we were young. Like basically recovering from one session to the other takes more time, and you're just more tired. Basically, you cannot expect to bounce back from a race or from a hard session as quickly as you were as when you were 20s, for example. Why is that? And maybe can you give us some, I don't know, general rules or tips to understand how to make sure that we're actually recovered after a hard training session or a race?
100%. Okay, so the reason is that despite runners being like skinny, distance runners being skinny, when you're running, you are still stimulating a lot of, like, say, testosterone production. But because we're burning a lot of calories, there's a thing called protein sloughing going on. So how much muscle is being like built by the body naturally as we train is like nearly being exactly negated by our increased demand for calories, and then an increased demand on like it's called protein sloughing, like taking some of the protein that would have been used for regeneration and repair, so we balance out. So that allows us to recover quicker because we have those like increased hormones, but it's balanced out. If we were doing exercise that's less calorie intensive, say like weight training, even sprint training, that's why they put on muscle. It's not that work just increases that muscle mass. Running also would do that to a lesser extent, but we have the calorie deficit. So
Yeah, the
because of those,
catabolic
yes, it's
damage.
a catabolic versus an anabolic state. Yeah,
exactly.
And it balances it. So because of that, then just naturally we have it that that regeneration capacity, you know, with changes in our body starts to decrease. So the important thing to do there is to accept that is the case. And a lot of people can get in trouble because they'll try to train in their 30s, their 40s, or their 50s like they did in their 20s.
Exactly.
And what's actually needed, like as I said, I'm running really well. I ran my 10K PB last year at like 36. I ran my 5K best times this year, last year, you know, so I'm running better now over even like 5K, 10K, which isn't that long, than I did in my 20s by a good bit, because I've adapted my training. So before, where you might do like a hard training Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, now you might just do a kind of workout on Wednesday and a workout on on Saturday, giving longer recovery. Before, I mightn't have taken like as many like rest days. Now I'll always take a full rest day on Friday. I will also do sports Pilates, something to keep my muscles and muscles activated, because as you said, that balances out, like especially on longer distances, like marathon run. I can come into that with injury when we talk about it, but basically just to know, you need to do some kind of like restoration work, be it Pilates, be it yoga, be it a gym work. You need to, rather than doing like 3 hard workouts in a week, you need to maybe split that into 2. You need to include a rest day in your week, and then you need to you know, you need to look at the distances you're covering. Maybe you like do less distance, but maybe add a little bit more of like quality in there. So rather than, say, if you're doing a long run that's like 20 miles constantly, but that's the stuff that you're naturally going to be good at. What we know that you're going to lose is that kind of speed or power. So what we should probably do instead is maybe like do 50 minutes of a warm up, 50 minutes of an easy run like you would have done, and then maybe do like 1 mile at, say, like our ultramarathon pace or even our marathon pace, 1 mile steady. Do that for, say, 3 or 4 miles. And then we might even do 40 seconds picking it up, 75 seconds easy, and then just jog out the last bit of the rep. And I would do that like say if you normally do like a 20-mile trail, you might just do 17 miles or 16 miles, but add some like quality in there. So it's just varying the stimulus, including those type of stimuluses that we need, and then having something to help counteract the body. Because I know we're going to talk about injuries more, but it is important to realize that, especially for ultra marathons and trail running less so, because the surface is different, it kind of keeps the muscles activated. But if you're running on road longer distances, that can generally overload the passive structures of the body, like the ligaments, the tendons, and the joints. So we get like Achilles tendonitis, we get plantar fasciitis, we get knee pain, we get hip pain. People don't really get like hamstring tears. They get hamstring tendinopathy or tendonitis. Why that is that the muscles are not absorbing the shock or the load, and they are leaving it to the joints, the ligaments, and the tendons to do that. And then they get overloaded. So what we need is something in the week to wake up these muscles. That's why I use my, say, sports Pilates, that we need something to increase the range of motion. And when you have the muscles woken up, when they are activated, they will naturally then start working more when you're running and take pressure off the ligaments, the joints, and the tendons, which have less regeneration capacity than they used to.
That's super interesting and something we should definitely highlight. So can you give us a few suggestions besides maybe Pilates, yoga, like general strength and conditioning work or core work, even, you know, other types of cross training? Can you give us a few examples?
Yeah, and what I can do is we'll put in the show links. I can put in like a little routine that people can do totally for free. I'll just put it on, we'll put it in the YouTube. So the exercises I would do is, I'm not a big proponent of stretching per se. Okay. So
yeah,
it's
that's
not,
another question I was gonna ask you. Like, since like our muscles and joints and tendons get stiffer and
yeah.
our flexibility decreases, is it important to pay more attention to stretching, whether that's static or dynamic,
Yeah.
or not so much?
Yeah, but it would be the problem sometimes is I have people who they might have hip pain or might have um like calf strains, and they come to me and they're like, I'm doing this stretch for 30 seconds. Say if it's hip pain. And I'm like, you sit on your ass for 10 hours a day. It's going to take more than a 30-second stretch to fix this. Do you know? It takes the first issue that I think, the main thing that causes problems, as I said, is that the passive structures of the body are overloaded because you're doing too much work. So to fix that, it's not a flexibility issue. Even if muscles feel tight, it's getting other areas working harder to take pressure off that area. So ones I love
I
would
think
be
it
like
comes down to strength work.
strength work. Yeah,
Just
exactly.
like, I think it's also very important in relation to injuries. Like, you don't actually fix an injury by just doing stretching or
Yeah,
just being more
exactly.
flexible. You need to do some kind of strengthening in order
Yes.
to address the problem. And once your muscle gets stronger and they're able to release the pressure on the injured area, that's when you get healthier.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it, Francesco. And that people don't recognize that enough. They think, oh, that's tight, I'll stretch that. But it's like, if you could, like, I say for Achilles pain, I don't do any, or calf pain, I don't really do any heel drops or heel raises. Because if you think about it, that area, the calf is already overloaded. So really what we need to do is like a single leg deadlift, which is like stand on one leg, bring the other leg back behind you and your body down. So you're looking like in a T or a plane kind of position. And then hold that position for say 5 to 10 seconds. Now what happens is the muscles on the arch of the foot start to really, really burn. The calf is working, but isometrically, like it's not having to, like the Achilles isn't having to move through a range, even though it's irritated. The hamstring and the glute start working a lot more, and thus waking these up, which can take pressure off the areas that have been overloaded, and then allow that to work so much more.
Yeah, that's interesting too.
I do think with flexibility, one I love is like that world's greatest stretch. So like, bringing your leg forward, moving through the ankle, moving well through the hip, moving well through the upper back. Be that with static stretching, be that with like joint mobility work, because trail running is better because we have to jump a little bit, because we're on the trails.
There's more variety.
There's more variety, which is excellent. Where especially running on roads, there isn't a lot of variety. So you're going through a very small range of motion, which can just irritate the same particular spot. So you want your ankle, your hip, and your upper back. They're the areas, they're the joints that require good movement. So having a little bit of a routine that moves through. So we always start nearly every session with that kind of hip opener, that world greatest stretch. But yeah, as you said, I think people, and I really like, like cross ball, massage ball. I always do that in bed. I think it's so important just to make things easy for yourself. Having a lacrosse ball or massage ball in your bedside locker. As I'm reading my book, it takes no more effort to be sitting on a hockey ball reading than it does to be reading. So I have a foam roller in my sitting room. I just try and get down on the ground when I'm watching TV, trying to make things easy for yourself as like little tips.
And what can we say about nutrition? Should it be in any way different from our normal nutrition that maybe we have when we are in our 20s? Like,
I think there is more of a need for that, like your protein. I always now take like and as you said, you probably have to watch, like, just calories in a little bit more because you don't burn as much. But one thing I would have is like 100% like protein smoothie. So I'll have like frozen kale or spinach, scoop of just 100% protein. I use a vegan one, then like a banana, and I'll have like say oat milk.
Yeah.
I'll whip that up,
So make sure
and
you get a good amount of protein.
exactly, I have that after
Help.
every even an easy run.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was younger, I might only have that after my 2 runs. Also, I think like some multivitamin, because one thing that we have to remember is when you're in your 20s, you don't have as much demands on your time. You know, family isn't probably as big a
Yeah.
commitment. Work isn't as big a commitment, so you have more time to recover. So, you know, making sure that you count that into your food and you count that into your recovery. I know it's hard, but can you get like even still get a nap at particular times, or can you try work out like a 10-minute meditation to just like down regulate the body? Because you're not probably going to naturally get those times as much.
Perfect. And when it comes like, so this leads me to another question that is more related maybe to the mental aspect, because I think it's very important to address. And one of the main thing is to just accept that we age and we cannot perform or be the same as we used to be when we were young. And that's totally okay. I think that's one of the first things to realize, because I see a lot of people that pretend to have the same results as when they were young, or they pretend to train the same way, expecting the same results, but that's just not possible. I think
that is so
it's
true,
very,
friend.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I think, look, is there one guarantee to get success as you get older? No, but there is a guarantee to get failure, and that is to train. We see that so often. People have certain, say on the trails, like, oh,
beliefs.
I always used to do, say, 24 miles, or I used to always do a 4 or 5 hour, like, you know, a 4 hour run when I was getting ready for this ultra marathon. And they constantly try to go back to these key sessions, and they don't realize that, look, you're still improving in different ways by changing the training and allowing the recovery. Because one thing you have when you're older that you don't have when you're younger is you have a base. You have like, I have a foundation now of
You have a
nearly
base and you
20.
have the experience too.
Yeah, I have 20 years of like aerobic in me. I have race experience. I have like knowledge of how to race. That they're other skills that you don't have when you're younger.
That's
And as you
huge.
said,
Yeah.
people chasing how they used to train is exactly how people struggle once they go. You need to adapt as you get older. So that's so true.
Yeah, it's also important to understand and acknowledge that the same session doesn't always give the same output in different contexts. Even, you know, within a year of an athlete's career, you know, a 2-hour long run that I do, you know, this week may not be the same as another 2-hour long run that I do in 2 months, because they have different purposes. I'm just in a different training block. There are so many factors that we need to take into account when thinking
Even
about our
whether,
training.
like what was your other training? Yeah, sometimes we can look back and think, oh, that's the one session I did or workout, and I need to hit that again. Where it's like as I get older, one thing actually about getting ready for a race is the feel. Like when I was younger, it was all about like, I need to hit these times because I hit that time last time. And I've done it where I've then forced to hit a time. Whereas when I really think about it, yes, the time was good when I ran a PB, but it was more, it felt so easy. So I think the thing that would do better, and I try to do that now, is the feeling of like being relaxed, even if it was slower, gets me in a better place to race than the like overexert myself trying to get to a certain time. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. And I think in the end, people who end up being successful at an advanced age are just the one who recognize and accept that they're slowing down, but they still focus on things that are controllable, like rest, recovery, good quality training, strength training, nutrition, as we mentioned, and just keeping our body efficient. I think in the end, it's all about keeping our bodies efficient so that we can run, have fun, perform, and don't compare ourselves to how we used to be maybe many years ago.
Yeah, and perspective, as you said, like that. You know, I run with a guy. He's national record holder over 40. He's 45, nearly 46 now. But just like the way he looks, our bodies are like in very good shape. And like, if we see some of his like classmates or someone who's his age, it's like, dude, it's just great. He can go with his kids and he's looking well, he's looking healthy, he's looking fit. So not to forget that if you're like, say, 55, of course, you know, you're not going to be, you know, as fast potentially over certain distances at 25, but it's like you're probably fit and healthy compared to other 55-year-olds, and that's amazing. And
That's awesome.
sometimes we can forget that because we are chasing, or we were used to coming first and now we're 10th or 20th, or, you know, even if you look at the people you're competing against, you know, over 55, it could be, well, I was third fastest over 55, or, you know, like most people aren't in this shape at this age.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think another really important and beautiful thing is the social aspect of running and the joy that we get out of it. Like, running should always remain like our best moment of the day, and a source of
The
happiness.
endorphins. Yeah.
The endorphins. And
And now sometimes it's tough though, isn't it? Like, it's not
it
always the
is,
best part of my day.
but
I
there
do love
is
it, but God.
but there is so much satisfaction that we can get out of it, even if it's not based on results. You know, there is so many reasons why we run, and they're all important as much as our results.
Yes.
So maybe to wrap up our conversation, a couple of other questions that I have. So we've understood that it's important to still keep quality, maybe reduce a little bit the frequency of hard training sessions, maybe go from 3 to 2 during a week.
Yeah.
What about volume? Like, is there an age that our volume should peak, and should we decrease in total volume of training as we age, and if so, how much?
That's a really good question. I actually don't know that well. Your volume is naturally going to decrease because you're going to have more rest days.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally, the amount of volume that you will do will decrease. How much you will decrease, like the actual runs that you do, I don't know. I don't think there's a need for that. Like, I wouldn't, you're naturally going to, maybe because of that rest day, take that. As you said, the volume might decrease where this is even just more of a training thing, which I know we'll discuss in the future, is that it's not so much just getting volume in or getting those low, long, slow miles in. It's like keeping some good quality in. And then to get the quality, obviously you can do like 10 miles of quality with some quality in the middle.
Of course.
Like, you can't do 15 miles of that compared to a 15-mile run. So that's where we're also going to do it. And I think that's a sacrifice worth making on the volume to keep like at least a quality session in that keeps the body on the varying paces. And I know we're going to talk about like the different training zones and how to hit that in another podcast.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I'm asking you this because mileage is definitely a base that for the training of any endurance athlete. So it's important to have a good base, but then I think it's also important not to stress too much and put too much importance on mileage as we get older and we have maybe
but like you still need to like
20-year history behind us.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't naturally be trying to like reduce, say, my long runs. I wouldn't be naturally trying to reduce the length of my runs. Perfect. Now, in fairness, Brian, who's that 45-year-old, he has gone back more even like life circumstances. Now he always does 60 minutes rather than a 70-minute run. Say, if like we used to always do 10 miles, he might do 9. Yeah. But I feel like keeping the run the same that I've always done roughly like 10 miles a day, keeping that 10 miles there, but having like the one day off. And then I still do my long run. And then making sure that because there's two session days. If you do a 2 to 3 mile warm up, and then you're doing like a block of like 6 miles of different very intensities, 2 to 3 mile cool down, you're still getting a long run there. I'm not, now I always take a Friday off, so I'm not getting that extra like maybe 5 miles that I used to do, or 6 miles in that time, and I'm not worried about it.
Exactly. Yeah, just cut the miles that you don't need anymore, basically.
Yeah, or if you find that, like they say, success leaves clues, like you can see how people run to do it, but also like failure leaves clues. Like I know, like in intense long runs that do change the pace without any break, they're the things that seem to like hurt my hamstring or like cause strain. So I just try to limit that. So again, like we said, if you used to always do, maybe you always just did a 30-mile run to prepare for the ultramarathon, say, but now when you try that 30-mile run, it causes a lot of niggles and injuries. Well, that's then when you might have to reduce the volume. Or say if you always try to get up to 80 or 100 miles in a week, and that was your go-to, say 4 to 5 weeks out was having like consistent 100 to 110 mile weeks. Now you might have to drop back that down, or if it was an 80-mile week, you always try to hit, but hitting 80 miles now causes an injury. You just need to recognize patterns and adapt to those patterns, and you'll do a lot better that way than just trying to ignore them.
Super important. Last question. In your experience, is there anything else we should pay attention to as we age and we still want to perform and have fun with running?
I think I know we've said it before, but I think the variation is more important as we get older. There is more stress on the joints, there is more strain. So having something like gym, like sports Pilates, or like yoga or something once in a week. If people want a free trial of the sports Pilates, they can go to Everard, EVERARD, Pilates, PILATES.com, and sign up for a free trial. You never have to do it after.
To include the link in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, but just even if people, then you'll see the type of exercises you could do. I think doing something like that, I think after a normal run, once in a week, say on a Tuesday or Monday, doing like 5 strides of 10 seconds. And if you don't have time for them, cut some of your normal run. That will add way bigger benefits than longer miles. And then in the week, having like set sessions, having set workouts. One might be like a longer aerobic type session, and one might be like a kind of 10K type session. The variation will help you way more than just going very, very specific, I find, as you get older.
I mean, thank you so much for our conversation. It was super interesting, and I hope our audience will find some valuable information. Yeah.
Thank you, Francesco. If anyone, I have a book as well. It's called How to Get to the Line in the Best Shape Possible. So you can go to everardpilates.com. So EVERARD Pilates.com/book, and it's free, and there's an audio book there.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.